All right, take 27. Welcome to WTFodcast. Let's just get this dumpster fire rolling down the road. Today's topic is the death of the video game industry and all the causes that have led to it. Over to Steve. Kick this off.
Well, hello, I'm Steve of What the Fuck Anime. Welcome to our podcast. So, death of the video game industry. I never thought we'd be having a discussion on this, like almost ever. The video game industry's been going so strong for so long that, basically almost nothing could have killed it. But there's one word I love to use that basically is the death bell, and that's live service games. So now,
can you explain live service games?
So basically, it treats games as a service, not something that you're doing for enjoyment, but that something is you subscribe to in order to fulfill. Think of it like Netflix. You don't sit there and you don't go on Netflix to sit there and basically interact with other people or anything like that. You're using it as a subscription-based service. And that's exactly what games as a service is. Live service games are essentially, hey, you're subscribing to this, congratulations. You don't own Netflix. You don't own Disney Plus. So one of the complications with games as a service is when you bought that game, do you really own it?
Only until they decide to shut the servers down.
Oh, God.
Nowadays, it's more complicated than that because you got extra content, DLCs, special feature bonus editions, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
I mean, picture how many times that you've sat there and played a game like Overwatch. We'll go with Overwatch. And you spent so much money on skins and everything like that for Tracer. Tracer was always my favorite. You've spent so much money on skins for Tracer, but now they've shut down Overwatch 1 and they've turned off all the servers to it. There went all your skins. There went all the maps. There went the entire connectivity of the game. No longer exists.
All your money put into those loot boxes?
In the early days of online, particularly server-ended heavy games, when the servers finally went down, if the game still had any single-player features, most people didn't have any problems accessing those. Games were designed that, the campaign was separate from the online functions. So one day when Halo 1's online player basis dips off and the last day they finally decide to shut down the Halo 1 live servers, you could still go back and play the campaign or even play co-op on a single device with friends. Not anymore. Now, the industry is deciding to completely brick the entirety of the game. They pull the plug on their live service on server end.
For me, the most
stealing your property back from you comes in.
The most heartbreaking aspect of this is like how, thanks to corporate rule and these elites taking over now, making the decisions, it's as if they've never read Fahrenheit 451. They're just asking us to burn and delete the games, forcing us to do with the TOS and the EULA standards now is kind of what it's come down to. Destroy the copies.
And the old approach to the EULA for the games is that no reasonable judge would expect you to read all like 500 pages of it. But in the most recent court cases, yeah, they kind of expect the user to now have read and understood the entirety of that huge document. So, it's like any reasonable person would not take a huge chunk of their day to sit there and read the entirety of something and go, yeah, I agree to that. Yeah, no, oh, yeah, no, I like that sentence. Yeah, that's fine. So, because Ubisoft actually slipped in something new into their EULA recently, and that's it. Ubisoft expects you to sit there and destroy all copies of the game that you have upon the game's termination.
And termination definitely means if it's no longer profitable, they have a right to just pull the plug, according to what this Stop Killing Games Explained by Banana videos is.
Yeah.
So in a sense, what about Steam? You know, on Steam, you buy all those games on there, and if Steam goes under, you lose everything?
Well, that's the difference. Steam is actually more consumer friendly, and when you purchase a game on Steam, they give you the ISO file inside of the game file.
Okay.
But not everybody's like Steam, because Epic Games doesn't do that.
No.
With Steam, games I bought 15 years ago that are deader than a doornail, I can still reload them, reinstall them, and boot them in whatever single-player options there are. Some games that are dead like that, even now, have crowdsourced, crowdfunded, crowd-created online play. Command & Conquer was a great example of something we thought we could no longer play multiplayer in. However, the community has created a system of servers where you can actually still play with your friends from far and wide. So,
Oh
some
yeah,
people
for
like to keep classic games
sorry.
alive and accessible. Please go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna just say that when you were saying about community and like bringing games back, like Toontown from like Disney, I got to the community of people brought that back, and you can still play that. And I got to work with them, and I got to more cogs and stuff. It was really cool.
Same with Club Penguin. Club Penguin actually still
that back?
exists. Yeah.
Oh crap! I didn't know they brought that back.
Yep. So we've got a video that we can all sit here and watch. And I'll go ahead and switch over to the screen with the video. And we'll sit here, we'll watch the video a bit. And you know, let's chime in with some thoughts and everything like that as we watch. So it's only an 8-minute, 37-second video. It's by MonkeyExplains. It's called Stop Killing Video Games Explained Using Bananas. So let's go ahead and watch this video.
If monkeys buy a copy of Donkey Kong Country, they should be able to play whenever they want, whether it's 2 a.m., 2077, or on their OG Nintendo Switch. But today, if monkeys buy a digital copy of any game, they run the risk of not being able to play it in a few years' time. Why? Because corpo monkeys at the top of many previously celebrated AAA giants have changed the rules. Hidden in legalese within their terms of service agreements, they're able to erase entire games and servers which are no longer hitting targets. Then terminate access to products and services you've paid for using your hard-earned bananas. Those bananas you spent on cosmetics, DLC, expansions, all gone. Just because the game is no longer profitable. The games industry is killing games, and it's got to stop. Before we move on, I understand that this is a little different from the stuff you see on my channel, but make no mistake, what's happening in the games industry is just as absurd as the other things I cover. So how are games being killed? For all the non-gamers in my audience, here's a quick explanation. Imagine you've been using Photoshop 7 for years. You've paid for it, learned it, and built your entire workflow around it. But one day, let's say Adobe decides Photoshop 7 is no longer profitable. They force you to upgrade, shut down the cloud servers holding hours of your hard work, and prevent you from opening the application entirely. Suddenly, you can't use Photoshop anymore, even though you paid for it using your bananas. Your ownership? Your access to a service you paid for? Gone. You get no say, you don't get a refund, and worst of all, you're the one left holding the bag. That's what's happening with hundreds of games. Games like The Crew, Overwatch, Gran Turismo, and the FIFA franchises are all guilty of this. Older standalone games from the mid-2010s are slowly being delisted from stores. As of writing this video, many are no longer playable. The average monkeys who bought these games, the ones who spent on in-game cosmetics, currencies, and expansions, they might as well have thrown their hard-earned bananas into the void. They lost access to a product they paid for, all because a company decided that preserving it didn't agree with their bottom line. And in doing so, they've effectively stolen your hard-earned bananas and given you nothing in return. But why are games being killed? Many old games are shot between the eyes in their sleep for many reasons. Some publishers claim that it's no longer profitable to maintain servers. Others hide behind low player counts, and the worst of all, cite the abomination of live service business models. But don't get it twisted. Gone are the days where gamers made games. Now it's just soulless husks focused on one thing: milking customers for all the bananas they've got. Corpo monkeys do not care about the friends you made playing Halo Online, the euphoria from clearing a hard raid for the first time, or your love of the art created by the developers. They care about profit margin.
Thoughts and commentary.
I mean, the thing is it's not too far off. While at the top there are corpo suits who sit there and do kind of ruin the games industry, so to speak. I do believe that there are still developers out there, because we see it in a lot of indie games where it's developers who truly love making games. And I am sure in companies like EA, Ubisoft, all these others, I'm sure Bethesda, I'm sure that there are people who still genuinely care about making good games.
But this explains that point too. This video covers it on a little more.
I believe there's some merit to that, but the way I maybe not in all places, but I feel as if in a lot of companies, the people who care about the quality of the game, the story of the game, the people making the game, the developers, pouring their hearts into it, I feel as if in many companies they are simply beholden to upper management and a board of investors. So even though you have a team of people who may truly care about the game overall being great, they have to cut so many things because it's not in the budget, or because the release needs to get pushed up quicker, or because some genius that doesn't even play games thought that was just a petty waste of time and we could allocate the time and resources elsewhere. I think the people that care aren't necessarily the ones that get to make those decisions within the company so much
Yeah.
these days.
No, this video covers that. Yeah.
It's, I think there's an important, I think it's important to discern between indie developers and corpo developers, and you shouldn't have to make those definitions. A game developer should be a game developer, but we've come so far now to where we have to make the distinction between the two classes. And let's face it, one is definitely a subclass of people now. So, all right, well, let's continue this.
And quarterly reports. If a game isn't squeezing out enough bananas to hit their targets, they pull the plug. On paper, this might make sense. And some monkeys are very quick to point out that there's no point in keeping a game alive if it's not making money. But every time a company pulls the plug, they're telling you that your trust and support via your hard-earned bananas don't matter. You paid for a product, not a rental. This isn't bad business. It's spitting in the face of the consumer. If we let companies get away with this, what's next? Will they start deleting your single-player games? Charging you to customize your character? Ask you to swipe your credit card for revives? Oh wait, it's already happening. This is a slippery slope, greased with corporate indifference and consumer apathy. It's a scam, dressed up in legalese. And the worst part is that industry giants like Blizzard have started sneaking this into their TOS forms. And here's the real punchline. Many of these games have single-player modes that can be played without an internet connection. Overwatch, Gran Turismo, both have content that could work perfectly fine without servers. So why can't you play them? Because the corpo monkeys would rather flip the off switch and push you to spend another 80 bananas on their newer release. And to be clear, it's unrealistic to expect old games to be supported with new content forever. However, they should be playable at the very least. Old games should come with an end-of-life plan. It could be a final patch which makes the game playable without the need for an internet connection, servers, or further support from the developers. But sadly, this isn't happening. The bottom line is this: games are no longer being viewed as art to be protected, but a means for investors and shareholders to turn a profit. But who wins from killing games? It's the corpo monkeys. The ones who see games not as art, but as a means to earn their annual bonus. When a game gets axed, they get to cut costs, free up server space, and funnel players into their supposedly newer and better release. Just look at Overwatch 2. Exactly the same game with some features changed here and there. Oh, but you bet there's loads of paid skins, battle passes, and time-gated exclusives. Killing old releases and forcing players onto their new game gives publishers all the leverage. You're not a customer anymore. You're a data point on a spreadsheet, a contributor to the bottom line. Other than the customers, there's another group who are being forced to participate in this shit show.
This is where
The
they talk about the
developers,
developers.
the real artists. They lose too. Most devs, sadly, have no say if their games live or die. Unless they're fully independent, they're just as powerless as the players. And most of the time, the devs are gamers too. Their art, their legacy, and potentially years of toil destroyed in the course of a single boardroom meeting. And when companies make games less about art and more about profitability, they end up making safe, formulaic slop with every release. Because there's no incentive to try something new, no room to experiment. It's the same shit, but different year. Where
I think it's interesting that they're using Madden and FIFA as like the examples of the types of games that sit there and are just repetitive.
I think that's one reason it's a great example of that, because they release one every single year, and it's
Mhm.
sort of like the iPhone. Nothing really changes with
Yeah,
the new
you can
release. They
you
just
can take a look
force
at
you to buy it again by making the old one not work.
They did
The
something with
Sims is a good
Nintendo,
example of that.
like, sorry, they like their little Nintendo shop, especially on the DS and stuff, or the what was it? It was the Wii U, where you went to the Nintendo shop and you could buy. They were selling actually like the old, like NES games, Super Nintendo games. People could buy it and stuff, and they would have it on their Wii U. But then when the Switch came out, I believe it was all those games that you bought on the Wii U, you couldn't have it on the Switch. You'd buy those for the Switch, and it was like, what? Why can't this? Just that stuff irks me. That
Intentional lack of backwards
Yeah.
compatibility when the hardware could easily support it is a similar tactic to just make you drop your old stuff and buy the new version. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems to be a reoccurring issue for some companies. Nintendo's a great example. Blizzard's another.
The
Um,
Sims series.
I mean,
I hate
It
that
hasn't really
one.
evolved much,
Oh.
but there's so many DLCs for it, and so much content that you just can't get from Sims 3 to Sims 4. You have to wait for all the Sims 4 DLCs. There was one game trying to challenge it, but that's like a Korean developer.
Enzo.
And it has its issues as well. But
Mhm.
just the fact that there was a contester to challenge it
But-
piqued the interest.
But I mean, even then, though, you look at it and you look at Enzoi, and it's another kind of cash grab, though.
It is.
Because, like, yeah, sure, the base model and features are all there, but you have to purchase worlds, you have to purchase this, you have to purchase... It's all combined in microtransactions again, which, I don't blame the EU for ruling that microtransactions were a form of gambling. Because it essentially is.
Yeah.
If you don't know what the transaction is going to give you, it is 100% gambling. It's a little different when it's advertising
God.
exactly what you're going to get for spending your money, but loot crates is undeniably gambling.
Yeah.
Yes. Overwatch with the skins, all that stuff. That sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could list several games like that. League and et cetera, yeah.
This is why I don't like gacha games, is because like games like Honkai Star Rail, Genshin Impact, Wuthering Waves, all these games, they're all, the basis of them is all gambling. And this is why I think there should be a stricter crackdown on that kind of stuff, because it's gambling. 100%. And so what are you teaching your 14, 15-year-old when they're like, oh, I love playing Genshin, but man, oh man, I need some more pulls. I need some more pulls. Where's the difference between somebody who's sitting in the front of a slot machine going, oh man, I just need 3 more picks, 3 more picks, 3 more picks? There's no difference.
I've been a sucker for those things. I've spent
Me
so
too.
much money on crap because I'm like, oh, I just have to have it. And it's like this tick, like, and then you wasted all that money. And I feel really guilty and bad afterwards. And I was playing a game that was definitely doing that. And I just had the game because I was like, okay, because this is just taking money out of my pocket. It just, it's a bad feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been a victim
wanna
to
say
several
that.
games like that, like Magic the
Mhm.
Gathering Arena. Like I've sunk in an embarrassing amount of money, and I don't have money to be spending like that. um, but it's concerning because that's one of those games. It's all online, so I don't really have an offline.
Yeah.
But anyways, we should
Yeah.
finish the
Let's.
video. We're almost there. Finish,
Yep.
Rush.
Love
Oh, I just want
and
to say one
passion
quick
once-
thing. You guys have like noticed the raising prices in video games now, like
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Nintendo just
Nintendo basically gave the green light to every other single company to go ahead and raise their prices. This is why when GTA 6 releases next year, I don't expect to be spending anything under $100 for that game.
$100.
I know
Oh,
that
man.
I know GTA 6 is going to be a $100 game. There's
That's
no
screwed
answer.
up. They have such a big fan base. Why extort make it, just come on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Your meme
Gave
board
us
is
great
hard at work
games.
over here.
Now sits
Yeah, he is.
greed and corporate interests. What I'm trying to say is this: killing games does nothing for the customer or the developers. It puts all the power in the hands of the corporation and leaves both players and developers at their mercy. The only ones who win are the ones who never cared about games in the first place. But it's not over yet. Even though this all looks incredibly bleak, we're not powerless. There's an initiative called Stop Killing Games. And it's a campaign started by regular monkeys challenging the legality of publishers destroying video games they have sold to customers. You can check out this website here for details, but here's a brief summary. The initiative calls for companies to keep games playable, even if they're no longer profitable, even if the servers go dark. At the very least, let us play the single-player modes we paid for with our hard-earned bananas. I would sign it myself,
Can you pause
but
real quick?
unfortunately,
Something something with the Switch. What I've noticed is when I would take it on airplanes or I'm not around Wi-Fi, I can't play any of the games that I bought. It
Yep.
has to be connected to internet just to play, and the game doesn't even need internet to play. Like single player games, it won't let me play.
I remember when the Xbox One was coming out and they announced at E3 that it was going to need a constant internet connection. And the whole reason why the PlayStation 4 sold better than the Xbox One was because PlayStation 4 sat there, simply walked out on stage and said, "Hey, you don't need an internet connection to play our games." But it's kind of sad because now you look at the PS5, the Switch 2,
they've
the
started doing it now.
Xbox. Yeah, everybody is now doing that constant online thing. So even my Steam Deck, which I love my Steam Deck to 100 pieces and more, it's one of those things, though, that certain games on it require a constant internet connection. And it shouldn't be that way, but it is that way.
I distinctly remember the announcement you were pointing out back when the Xbox One released. Yeah, that I was livid. I'm pretty sure I actually went online and went on a small tirade several times about it. Like, oh, you telling me now living in a state that gets hit with constant hurricanes, if my internet goes out, I would love to be able to hook up my Xbox to a generator and keep myself from going bored out of my mind while the power's out. But
Yeah.
not anymore. Not when all the games you own won't even let you play them if it doesn't recognize, oh, you're logged into your live connection.
Yeah.
And like, I know that, to prevent piracy, companies would like there to be a handshake between the game, the user, and the server, just to make sure that that person purchased that game. But by doing what they've been doing lately, it's just that slight feeling that it's just going to drive up the piracy. It's not going to drive down the piracy. And that's just what it feels like is by doing this, it's just going to be constant and more piracy going on and on. There's that cycle that this enters into constantly. And I don't think we're going to experience another game crash like we did in the 80s. But it feels like at some point there needs to be a turning point to where the people purchasing the games need to be reassured that they are purchasing the games.
Imagine buying a T-shirt and then it's like, okay, well, you're not paying the the fee you need to keep the shirt on, and then you lose your clothes and just. Sorry, that was stupid.
And they send the repo man to get your clothes off of you. No.
That's a very valid comparison because the video game crash of the 80s was actually due to very similar reasons and conditions that are being created right now. A complete lack of faith from the game consumers and them feeling utter disgust with the overpriced garbage of low quality and low content that was being, put out into the market and flooding the market. It was tons and tons and tons of dissatisfaction, and the industry did not listen. They did not care. They did not change what they were doing one bit. And took 1 or 2 years, and they tanked the whole industry. 90% of all people interested in games said, screw it. I'll just go play video games at an arcade. I'm not about this shit. I'm not going to participate in this game if this is what they're going to give me. And we're creating a scenario very much like that, or at least big game companies are creating a scenario very much like that again.
I have a theory of what threw the doors open for this kind of abuse. And I don't know if you guys remember, but not too many years ago in the US, there was that whole court case against Sony about people sitting there and going into their PlayStation 4s and putting custom software onto them. And the US courts wound up ruling that the person who purchased the machine, purchased the PS4, they own the device. But apparently, you don't own the software on the device. And it confused me so much because I sit there and I go, okay, I can kind of see it. Because if I buy a laptop, I don't have to keep Windows on it. I can put Linux on it. And I've done that a bunch of times. But also at the same time, if I buy a PS4, it's basically a computer. And I should be able to wipe the software off of it. But if you're saying that my device is no longer usable because I'm not using the software that came with it on it, and that software is the thing that is part of the license, and so by removing that, I brick the rest of the device, well, then I don't really own the device.
Yeah.
What did I pay for?
I mean,
Switch has been bricking a lot of people.
Yeah. And some of the reasons why they've been bricking some of the Switches, I think are legitimate things. Like if you put in a very derogatory username and that's why they brick the Switch too, then yeah, go for it. But let's say that person goes and resells it and then you purchase it from like GameStop or whatnot, you should be able to show to Nintendo when you purchased it from the GameStop, and they should immediately unlock the device again so that the new owner can do things the right way on that device.
Is it just me? Is this like an impossible thing? Because in my mind, I feel like relating to that very issue, wouldn't it just make more sense and be easier to simply ban or delete that particular user's account and not actually do something to the device?
It would make the better sense, but for some reason, Nintendo integrated the user IDs into the Switch software, which made no sense.
Think that's dumb.
Is hard linked to the device's hardware.
Yeah,
I don't think they should, even with a bad username and such. No, I don't think it should pertain to the system itself. It should be for whatever it's connecting to. I mean, account. Thank you.
If you do
that should be banned, not your own. You bought the like $300 system, the whole physical thing. That's yours, and then you're just gonna be like, okay, the whole thing is now non-functional. That should be banned against that game or whatever.
Yeah.
participate in the larger
Stupid
community
shit.
and stay active in a live forum that's hosted by PlayStation or some other company, I would
Mhm.
imagine it's more reasonable to say, no, you have to agree to our policies and code of conduct if you are going to be on our host-ended, server-ended live
Yeah.
system that links you all together. But if
Yeah.
you're unfit for playing with others, if you're too vulgar to play with others, okay, you're sitting here, you're offline, play your single player games because you can't be allowed to interact with other civilized people.
I feel like it used to be that way, because didn't some games actually release like a lobby feature where if like they were abusive players, they'd have to go into a lobby with other abusive players? I feel like this was a thing.
That sounds familiar. That does sound familiar. I don't
Older
remember where it was
Xbox
from though.
You would
Yeah.
get strikes, you would get put in a room with other, and yeah, sometimes it was indeed like not just you banned by yourself.
I
I
gotta
think
look
that was
that up.
maybe more of an in-game feature. I remember that happening when we play Call of Duty, so maybe it wasn't exclusive to
Maybe
the
it's Call of
Xbox
Duty?
itself.
It was
Certain
probably
games
Call
were-
of Duty.
It was a game, not a whole system, but it was a certain game. It
Game,
might have
yeah.
been Call of Duty.
But you know,
Whatever.
there's so many things that are really annoying, because you're looking at something of like, do I own it? Do I not own it? And you know, I've always been kind of that hybrid person where with my PC, I've always been the type to where, okay, I'm fine with digital because I'm purchasing it from Steam, yada yada. It's a really trusted platform. But then I look at things like my consoles, and with my consoles, I've always been I want the physical media. But now finding out that certain games, even when you buy the physical media, it's not really anything on the disc. Maybe the first level or anything like that, but then it relies on a download to give you the rest of the game. So what's the point in buying the disc media if my PlayStation isn't connected to anything and I want to just put the disc in and play? I can't. I ran into that with Cyberpunk, where I had Cyberpunk for my PlayStation. I sat there, took the disc, put it into the PlayStation, closed it up. I didn't have internet at the time, so I was just like, okay, well, I'll just sit here and play Cyberpunk on this. And suddenly all it was it popped up and said could not initiate the game because couldn't download the files because there was no internet connection. So what was the bloody point of me having to go and buy the disc if the disc doesn't have any of the damn game on it?
File on it. What is on the disc if not the install file? Is the
Yeah.
disc itself only got like, what does it just run like 4 numbers? Like, yep, these are the first 4 numbers of the code you need to install the game.
Running launcher.
Yeah.
Running verification code.
So, and like I said, I get it. There's a part of me that it makes sense that you want some kind of handshake there, but at the same time, that handshake feels disingenuous.
Yeah, it does.
So, all right, let's finish this video up.
Monkey.
The petition is only available to EU citizens. So if you're an EU citizen, please consider signing the petition to preserve the games we enjoy. Will it guarantee change? Maybe, maybe not. But every movement starts with a signal. Even if this never makes it into the code of law, it tells the industry that the monkeys are watching, and we're not happy with how things are going. If enough monkeys put our foot down, maybe, just maybe, some companies will rethink their decisions before pulling the plug on the next game. Because after all, monkeys strong together. And it's working.
Strong together.
While I was editing this video, a video game lobby made a statement against the initiative. This can only mean one thing. The corpo monkeys are scared. Let's keep it that way. So if you too care about preserving art, please consider signing the petition and add your voice to the choir of hundreds of thousands of others just like it. And if you're not part of the EU, you can help by spreading the word. Tell your friends, your guildmates, your family. Every little bit helps. If any monkeys are confused, just remember that this is a simple explainer of how the gaming industry is killing art. And unlike the previous videos, please absolutely consider this as a call to action to go sign the petition today. Thank you so much for watching, and please let me know what you'd like to see me cover next.
Sign that
Actually,
petition.
I've already checked the petition. There's about 1.3 million people already signed, so they've already met their goal. They're on like they
Oh,
call
okay.
it something. Yeah,
It
they're over their goal.
it makes me happy knowing that things are changing. But then again, you have people out there who, under the guise of quote unquote supporting it, are also sitting there and driving home the fact that, you know, the developers quote unquote have these rights that are over yours. And it drives me crazy. Pirate Software is one of those guys, by the way. I'm not a big fan of his. I think he's very scummy. But the big thing is like, yeah, okay, I get it. Maybe the developers have some rights, but once you release it to the public and it's out there for the consumer to purchase, at that point, it's our game. At that point, we're the ones who have sat there and invested the time and the money. And if I sit there and I purchase a game, it's mine. I own it. Software, hardware be damned. If I have sat there and I have pulled out my wallet and I have spent $5, $10, $15, $20, $100, $200 on your game, and I'm one of those idiots. I used to play EVE Online and I spent thousands of dollars in EVE Online.
Hard, yeah.
And all
But
that.
at least that game's still floating around, still playable.
Yeah. But like, that's my game. Like, that is something that I own.
Yeah.
You know, and I should have the ability to where if these things go offline, I should be able to still play them. This is how come I like my PlayStation 1. I like my NES. I like all the other gaming consoles that I still own. I like them because all the games I own, all the games I can still play. If I wanted to go play the original version of Resident Evil 2 right now, I could whip out my PlayStation 2, turn it on, pop in the disc to Resident Evil 2 out of the 4 fucking discs that game takes to run, pop it in, and play.
Yeah, there's something to be said
Works.
for older game consoles, older tech. As long as you hang on to it, plug and play, your fun is 5 minutes away. I mean, it's a better way.
What about
Oh my God.
MMOs?
Yeah, we're gonna ignore the
Wouldn't
fact that
MMOs be kind of considered, like if
A lot of them are.
you
If
can't
you're-
play that by yourself, you
Yeah,
can't
no,
just you
that's-
have to be connected and everything to play an MMO. So that's like a
without
game that
multiplayer
you
servers,
do
there is no other content.
lose money at.
I mean, here's the thing is when you had something like, I played Star Wars Galaxies for a really long time. And Galaxies now exists in the realm of things running on private servers. And it's nice to know that Galaxies is still back in that fashion.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that it was driven that way in the first place, and I get it, Sony dropped it off because it was no longer as popular and everything like that as it was. But at the end of the day, that the community still managed to keep going. There's really nothing to keep the community going for something like Overwatch, when I know that there's a handful of like private servers out there, but it's based off a code that was kind of stolen because the developer never gave them the option of having that code available to the user so that they could sit there and they could go off and create. I think at a minimum, if you're going to take an MMO offline, let's say nightmare scenario, Final Fantasy 14 goes offline and it's going bye-bye. I feel Square Enix has a duty to the users who have put in so much time, so much money, so much effort, that they should release the code to those people to be able to allow them to run that on private servers and keep their content going and alive. And then the cost becomes the baron of those who wants to run the private servers. And yeah, sure, maybe they might take Patreon donations or whatever to keep those private servers going. I think that is fair to happen.
The game company's chosen to take the game out back and end it because there's zero profitability left in it. Their servers are down. They're no longer expensing the game's existence, and they've already thrown their hands up about the idea of making more money off the game. why not hand it off to the community if the community wants to personally host it and keep it alive? At that point, you're not taking anybody's money out of their pocket.
We're all kind of in this weird stage right now with the games industry as a whole. And I'm sitting here and I'm waiting for it to make the left turn. But I've been sitting at this light for forever. And yeah, I think Stop Killing Games is a great starting point. But this is the starting point to start making these companies turn. Because we're sitting here and we're living in an age where what is ownership? What is this? And all that used to be better defined. And I don't care if we're living in a digital age. The thing is that the things that applied in the hardware age should still apply here in the digital age. If I take the time and I purchase something for my hard-earned cash, it should be mine.
Indeed. I would go as far as to suggest this. I mean, it'll never happen, but if they want to brick our games that we've paid for and we own physical copies of, they ought to legally have to come repossess it in person. See how that works for them.
Oh, I would love to watch them attempt that. So
It'd make for a lot of interesting videos.
I mean, it really would.
They try to brick us, then we throw bricks at them.
It's so weird when you really think when you really think of things. I found another video here, and I think it kind of touches upon the I think it kind of touches upon the whole, like, what Pirate Games was trying to say and do and whatnot. And I don't know if we should watch it or whatnot. But it's certainly there as an option if we do. But I want to point out that in this entire journey that we've been going through with the whole build up to Stop Killing Games and whatnot, it's kind of weird the fact that there have been people out there defending this. Because I have ran into people who sit there and go, well, yeah, it just makes sense, man. I don't really own it. Yeah, I
And you're
bought
okay with that?
Yeah, it's like
Like,
I had a
chain that someone's putting around your neck.
I had a coworker who I was talking with this about, and they sat there and they were like, well, you know, to me it makes sense because, you know, they supplied all the back end and everything like that. And if it stops making money, man, then you should just turn it off. It's all about the money. So, like, I don't mind. They can turn it off. If they ain't making a profit, let's move on to something else. And I'm like, you're okay with being a shill?
Right?
Yeah.
These people haven't been taught how to have a spine, it sounds like.
You know,
or what if they're plants from the game industry? What if they're plants from big gaming? Simply paid mouthpieces that are unaffiliated with a big game company, but perhaps have something to gain for defending the big game company's agenda.
no, they're just stupid.
Who would logically advocate for something that steals money from their own pocket?
I want to pose something to the younger audience who's sitting here and they've never gone through this before, they've never dealt with it before. But let's say Roblox or Fortnite turned off tomorrow, and all that money that you spent on V-Bucks is no longer there. All that money that you spent on the Bucks blocks or whatever they are called in Roblox, what if that's no longer there?
Boy, sounds a lot
And
like
you left and basically whenever you try to load up that game now, you're met with a screen that goes, "Uh-oh, you can't come in. Sorry, it's no longer working." And
I
I
just
think
want to say I doubt a kid would be watching our podcast, but continue.
no, I'm just saying the younger audience. Period. I'm talking.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Ducky, realize the people that the people that are playing that were playing Fortnite and Roblox in your head, those people turned 18 and 19 this year. They're adults now. Those people who
my
grew
nephew,
up
who's
playing
like
that
10.
yeah, the people that grew up with those games, they're no longer 10, 11, 12-year-olds now. They're
Okay.
18, 19, 20, 21 years old now.
You're a big kid now.
Yeah.
Our burden to
I'm
bear.
a big
It's
kid
the
now.
responsibility of the older generation of gamers to teach the history and evolution of
Yes.
games in the game industry, so people know what to look for and know when they're getting shorted, and to not take it with a smile on their face.
Yeah.
Got it.
So let's go into this next video, and we're going all four of us are going in blind. But
Okay.
I wanted to see what another perspective is on this. And especially somebody who had to sit there and they watched the stuff that Pirate Games was saying, and basically I don't know if this video is for it or against it. The title is kind of hard for me to discern if it's for or against it, but I figured let's watch a blind video. Let's watch a video that just none of us has sat there and watched, and let's see what this is. So this video is Stop Killing Games Was Doomed. Now It Can't Be Stopped. This is by Bellular News, who actually has kind of a cool logo. I kind of like that. But
is this related to the last video about them having that poll petition with all the signatures and saying that's doomed? It's not gonna. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, let's just take a peek at this and see what another perspective is, and going in blind to another video.
All right.
Most had just opened. As of right now, you've got just days.
I'm having load issues here.
Yeah.
It's hold.
So
Jumpy.
it is. People are watching me change my baud rate here live. Okay.
Okay, this one's going to be fun. So, the Stop Killing Games initiative is almost over. And the last time we covered it, the European Citizens Initiative, which is the part of it that matters the most, had just opened. As of right now, you've got just days to join it, meaning that this is your last chance to make your voice heard and hopefully prevent the games that you buy from being destroyed. But here's the thing. Until last week, it really did seem to be rather doomed. They needed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, over 500,000 more signatures. But, well, right now, it's getting thousands an hour. The reason why is quite funny. So here's what happened. They needed to hit 1 million signatures, but after months of stalling, they only had 450k. But then, over the horizon, a savior came. That savior is Pirate Software. And that's because his opposition, plus a few pinches of World of Warcraft, sparked a drama that is now surging signatures to the tune of over 240,000 in just 7 days. So, time to get you up to speed. It all began last year when the darlings at Ubisoft shut down the crew. Now, they didn't just shut down the online features, they shut down everything, because as it turns out, even the single player required the online component. That basically meant that your copy of the crew was, no longer a thing that you could really do anything with. So, Ross Scott from Accursed Farms was not a fan of this, so he started a movement. Now, you may know Ross from things like Freeman's Mind or Dead Game News, and his plan, right, was to use the law, not change.org, to actually change things here. And it certainly seems that now, a year on, he actually may succeed in a way. So basically, right, Ross believes that consumers bought a product with games like The Crew, and that product was...
I'm just going to point out, if you haven't seen Freeman's Mind, it is amazing. It is one of the funniest machinimas that I have ever seen. So knowing that this thing stemmed from somebody who took basically what is inside of Gordon Freeman's head and started this movement is kind of amazing, because I didn't realize that that's who actually started this. I just thought it was like a bunch of grassroots people. So, sorry, I just had to add my 2 cents in on that one.
That's an interesting note.
Sorry, I'll keep playing it.
Then taken away. But from Ubisoft's perspective, it's rather different. They argue that they sold a license to a live service, a service that they could simply end whenever they wanted. So put simply, what this movement aims to do is to address this grey area so that, at the very least, people would get formal clarity on what they were actually buying. Best case scenario would involve something basically with more teeth. Now, this was all multi-pronged. There was a UK campaign that hit problems early on with the government claiming that existing laws already covered the issue. As for the US, well, basically, it was never an option because of already settled law. Now, because of this, stuff looked grim. But last summer, another path opened, and that path was the EU Citizens Initiative. So, this lets EU citizens propose legislative agendas, and this proposal was very simple. Stop destroying video games. And what it would require certainly does sound simple. It's that any game sold in the future would have to prepare for the eventuality or the possibility of server shutdowns, that they would need to remain in a functional playable state. Now, this could be through, say, single-player access, maybe through peer-to-peer connections, opening up private server stuff. You get the point, right? But actually, what's key right now is that at this point, the implementation details are actually not required. The way this works is that if it is successful, the EU would then have 6 months to respond, and if they say yes, then they will adopt a resolution. And that would guide EU activity, but it would not instantly mean a whole bunch of new super hasty laws. But make no mistake, it would actually matter. And that's because EU policy has got global impact. I mean, it's pretty obvious now. Just look at Apple and Google for one example. Now, for this, all that's needed is A, 1 million signatures, and B, a minimum threshold being passed in at least 7 EU countries, which basically just exists. So, I don't know, if the French all get together and want something that nobody else wants and only one country passes, then hey, the EU's safe. Anyway, you get the point. That is the challenge. Those are the stakes. So here's what happened next. Going through the requirements, the regional thresholds do seem to be quite manageable, right? Now, the million signatures is quite a lot. I mean, a hell of a lot. And success there would require a multilingual international campaign, one that's actually centered on EU citizens. Who is leading it? Well, an English-speaking YouTuber with a cult following, which I mean in a positive way, just so I'm being clear. But basically, it's not a huge number of people. Now, this story obviously did cut through. Loads of people covered it, us included, and the early momentum was really strong. Until it wasn't. Now, this is because some things fell through. One being a planned feature in GOG's email newsletter that was tanked by that company having layoffs. Even Heineken, yes, Heineken, the beer people, wanted to include the campaign in their marketing, but only after the petition ended. But there is another one, and I think I know it's the one you want me to talk about. It's the pirate. Okay. TLDR, Pirate Software opposed the initiative. This is back when it all kicked off. So what I'll do here is boil down what I essentially think is the best case, or like the best faith version of his argument, which is essentially that in very many cases, over-regulation often actually helps the incumbents. In this case, would help the AAA companies. The reason being that they would be the only companies with the resources to actually overcome the regulations. That is actually a fair enough, reasonable argument, but I think in practice, it's fair to say that Pirate Software, in his 2 videos, was not really steel-manning his opposition. There were some errors, wasn't really a great situation. But really in this story, there's a key thing to remember. The initial, I'll say drama, let's just say hot public disagreement, that with Pirate happened when, let's just say, his internet stocks were in a slightly different and altogether more healthy place. Since then, he was involved in a major World of Warcraft drama, which I will cover shortly. I don't like doing drama, but in this case, it does actually inform how the news would play out. As for the initiative, well, by the following April, signatures were just sitting at 425k. That's not even halfway, and only 25,000 signatures had been added between April and last week. So it basically was dead in the water. Momentum from the previous summer had completely fizzled out. But then, with only weeks to go, Scott posted his video, and everything changed. The end of Stop Killing Games. It's a fairly dramatic, somber title for a video, and one that is fair. It absolutely did appear to be dead. It was a final plea and an explainer made by a very, very tired-looking man. It was clear to me that the campaign had taken its toll. Scott admitted as much. One choice quote, "It's like asking someone with severe dyslexia to write a book report on war and peace. I am the wrong person for that job." And I think that does speak to the absolutely mammoth amount of work that doing anything like this would actually require. But it's not all that Scott said. He took aim at Pirate and he explained point by point, right, how Pirate's coverage was, in his view, not at all a fair representation of the overall initiative, its goals, its specific language, and I would say from my read of it, I think Pirate almost immediately jumped straight to some worst case outcomes of a maximalist version of the campaign. Of course, we can add to that an interpersonal level to all of this, you know, the usual emotional reactions, hot words. But if it was just that, if it was only that, well, what happened would not really be what has happened. So let's talk about World of Warcraft. As I said, I hate covering drama, but today it is actually relevant because basically it is the kindling. I think what we're seeing with this initiative would not really have played out if these World of Warcraft related events didn't play out the way that they did. Because basically this is why people were ready, willing, and even excited to hop back into the fray and to pump all of this up. So here's the TLDR. OnlyFanked was a WoW Classic hardcore streamer content guild. That's a lot of words, but basically think of it as a reality TV show where dozens to hundreds of hours of gameplay are at stake, because when a character dies, it is dead. Just that that character has got lots of fans in Twitch chat and some sort of big name behind them in the form of the streamer. Pirate, along with other streamers, were doing a dungeon in this game. And that dungeon went poorly. People died, and of course, whenever they died, that means they lose their characters that they progressed. Now you might be thinking, so what? A World of Warcraft dungeon run went bad and people lost their characters in a hardcore server. Why is that a news story? Well, there absolutely is a reason why. So it was broadly seen that he went very much every man for himself mode, trying to save his own character and really to the detriment of his teammates, a few of whom died. Now at the time, tensions were high, and those tensions were pointed at Pirate Software, both from viewers and from his fellow party members. And what followed was, I think, to put a very messy thing in simple terms, in an emotional sense, the opposite of saying, shit, my bad, I'm sorry, I absolutely could have done more there, my bad. Basically owning the L, doing so in public, and doing so in a way that feels authentic. Of course, that, you know, feels authentic because it actually is authentic. So if you ask me, what actually happened is a common downfall of very smart, very rational people. That's because very smart, very rational.
I just kind of want to read this for a second.
Yeah.
So, because this is I have never seen him write something this long before from Pirate Software. To those trying to character assassinate me online for a bad poll in WoW Hardcore, this is Hardcore WoW, and a lot is on the line when you step foot into a dungeon. Here is a light breakdown of the last 24 hours. Our party went the wrong way and overpulled multiple packs with a boss. The shot caller made the call to run, then went back on that call. During the run out, another pack was pulled as we had opted to skip it previously, which is never a good thing. Communication was completely broken throughout this, and it was our second time failing the dungeon. Everyone played poorly, and 2 people ultimately lost their characters for it. Each person in this group made mistakes, including myself. I have never once said I was a perfect player, nor that I was a god gamer. I'm just an ex-Blizzard employee that has played Mage for a long time. To pin that on a single person is absurd at best. If you're calling for death and cancellation over it, you're too invested in this content in a very unhealthy way. If you're a creator engaging in this kind of behavior, then eventually your content wave will end, but the relationships you've sullied will be permanent. Hope it was worth it for you. This feels like a lot of blame pushing.
Drama. Yeah.
Like a lot of blame pushing.
Inspiring back from a very personal attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To those trying to defend me, don't worry about it. This too shall pass. Do not attack anyone else on my behalf. I've always hated that kind of behavior. I have no intention of stopping making things or not doing stuff as I already have been. For those who were banned will stay so. I've never liked that kind of knee-jerk behavior in our community before, and I will not be changing that now. For those that don't understand why they will stay banned, we had a 10-hour-long hate raid over it live on Twitch. We had to ban nearly 4,000 accounts across all platforms, and our moderators received death threats regularly throughout it all. People called for me to be killed both in-game and out of game. They tried to get me banned from Twitch, the guild, and WoW, and they tried to make disparaging comments about our ferret rescue or that we somehow hurt animals. They tried to spread rumors saying I was convicted of felonies and many other things. The internet hate machine will not defeat me or the community that supports me. See you in WoW Hardcore tomorrow. My takeaway from this is that he probably did something stupid while playing WoW Hardcore. Probably sat there, got a lot of people's characters perma-killed, because that's how WoW Hardcore works. It sits there and perma-kills that character, and a lot of people are bitter over it. Okay, I can see it. I can sympathize with it, but damn.
Yeah.
4,000.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
lot of...
Crazy.
Joining the podcast, we have a thunderstorm going on right now, and he does not like that.
Maximus.
Max.
It's okay. All right, let's dig back into this one.
People can rationalize how they are very, very right and others are very, very wrong. And from that place, it's very easy to disregard how other people think and to not have a holistic view of a situation. I mean, to put it in very simple terms, people thought he came off really defensive. And what all of this meant was fuel for the fire, an abundance of fuel. And I've got to imagine that from Pirate's point of view, it really must have looked like the entire world was against him. And I mean, in a few ways it was. It was a total mess. Or, you know, per the dynamics of Twitch, it was an incredible content event. And the reality is that once people are against you, it's very hard to change minds, especially when, as I think Pirate was, you're feeling quite defensive and you're very much feeling the toll of thousands of angry people being very angry at you in just about every way they can. Meaning that, yeah, some people were, let's just say, going beyond having just a civil disagreement. Now, after that point, some aftershocks followed. There was a clip of an Ashes of Creation raid pool that sparked a bit of a drama. There were then accusations of pre-watching games in order to look better on stream. There was critique of his Blizzard credentials and a whole lot of different things. Basically, he turned into somewhat of a punching bag. Now, to, I suppose, try and work through some of this, he did a session with Dr. K. I think it was a pretty enlightening one. It certainly is, I'd say, a good listen. It essentially did get into why he reacted the way he did, the way that he actually felt. I'm not going to paraphrase here too much beyond just what I've already said. That's my takeaway. So I'd recommend, if you want more texture, more understanding of this story and the social dynamics that made it play out, give Dr. K's video a watch.
I mean, it feels like a cop-out to me.
Games movement, I think you can see how, well, whenever there was the initial disagreement of Ross, Pirate stocks were looking pretty good. But then he was involved in several major dramas. These dramas led to hundreds and hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of people maybe finding out about him or having a changed opinion of him. There were a lot of videos talking about, you know, mistakes, examining everything. And that's why right now, before this video, when I just searched for Pirate software on YouTube, here's what I got. We've got the Pirate software unraveling featuring a game developer, 211k views. A Josh Strife Hayes reaction, 204k views. An Axeman video, 586k views. An Upper Echelon video, 266k views. One from Moist Critical, 3.1 million views. And that is just the top few search results. We're talking about millions of views here. Now, while so many of these were rooted in the dramatic aspect, obviously they were related to Stop Killing Games, and they all painted Stop Killing Games in a positive light. And what that essentially meant is that now you didn't need to be a game preservation enthusiast to know that Stop Killing Games exists. All you needed was a passing interest in one of the larger ongoing dramas, and of course, even if you didn't have that, social media algorithms do know how to find you if you could be interested interested in it. All of that means a humongous megaphone, and so far, it absolutely seems it's done the trick. We've went from almost certain failure at 454k signatures to, at the time of writing this video, 714k, and at the time of recording, which was only a few hours later, 737k signatures. Now that basically means that they need 263k in about 30 days. And obviously, if this rate holds just a little bit longer, they'll absolutely make it. Or will they? Because here's the thing. They do actually need consistent, legitimate signatures. The reason why is fairly simple. Fake ones could be stripped out. Overexcited Americans having fun with a VPN, I don't know, could probably try to sign up for this. Wouldn't help the initiative. It would probably get scrubbed. And, well, if you're in America, you can't sign an EU petition. So it's not a guaranteed thing just yet, but it certainly is looking like it's going to pass 1 million. Now, what happens if it succeeds is basically this. The EU Commission will consider further action. That could be legislative action, or it could just be guidance on existing consumer laws. Now, no matter what, the industry would have significant input, but regardless, we would get a formal statement on the matter and its legality. And that's actually a powerful starting point for future conversations and new laws. But here's the thing, it gets even better. Because those conversations have already begun, and we've already started to make progress. Through all the noise and all the drama, the core problem is fairly simple. That audiences often think they're buying a product when they buy a game, but in reality, they're actually buying licenses. Now, since October, Steam explicitly states that all purchases are licenses, that it's not ownership. And that was always the case, it's just that now it's no longer hidden in their EULA. And Valve's timing was, let's just say, curious here. That's because California signed AB 2426, stating that any media that you can't permanently access offline must be labeled as a license, not a product. Now, another side to this is companies seeing PR opportunities, and there's a beautiful irony. Ubisoft, yes, the very company that started this whole mess, is actually taking action. That's because they're testing offline modes for The Crew 2 and Motorfest, and I think it's fairly clear that the Stop Killing Games movement inspired this. So
probably a panic attack
in
and
certain ways,
panic response more than likely, if I had to guess.
Now, another thing that could inspire this was an actual lawsuit.
I'm trying to track, but I could barely hear a word he's saying. I got my volumes all cranked and y'all turned down.
Actually facing some problems right now, and that's because of a Final Fantasy XI related precedent that lets companies remove users from games because, well, as a user, all you've bought is a license, and that can be revoked. That's a ruling that obviously plays to Ubisoft's advantage in that lawsuit, but looking at the big picture, we actually do see the developers are choosing to address these issues, and not because...
I'm just going to go ahead and cut the guy off here, just because now he's into the speculation hold, but I think ultimately... I think ultimately the point was fairly well achieved in that, yeah, what he's doing and everything like that is, you know, trying to put a positive spin. But at the end of the day, I still think that there are way too many companies that'll have some kind of influence or sway even over the EU petition. But it's a nice step in the right direction. And I think the whole Crew online thing is probably some kind of knee-jerk reaction. I feel like it's like, let's give them this appeasement now and then they'll stop bothering us about it later. So I'm just tired of buying a game and then that game not really being considered mine.
Yeah.
So
It sucks.
I think it puts us all in a bad spot, period, for trying to enjoy our games, trying to enjoy the things that we enjoy doing.
Not having that fear that it could be gone the next day. And yeah.
I would hate to wake up and half my library be gone. I have over 600 games on Steam. I would scream if my library disappeared.
I'd probably give up gaming for the rest of my life. Yeah, those all got bricked.
I have about 200 games, and some of them are just not working anymore because of Windows 11. So, but to be older games.
Yeah, that's why I'm a big supporter of GOG, because GOG sits there and has that initiative to sit there and fix those older games to get them to run on newer systems. I've got some ancient ones like the Dagger of Amun Ra that luckily works now, and that's one of my favorite Laura Bow games. I mean, there was only ever 2 Laura Bow games, but that's the other one that actually works. So
I do like GOG. That is a very handy asset. I mean, there have been some old games that, you know, the devices they were made on are generations behind the computers we use, and you couldn't find a copy, let alone get one to run if you could. However, GOG will sit there and take a Nintendo 64 or a Super NES game and make it run as smooth as butter on your PC through their browser download or their browser stream of the old games.
yeah. So I mean, here's the I guess here's the gist is I mean, what do we expect? What do we want to change? Because this kind of feels like an Occupy Wall Street moment where now people are starting to ask us gamers, well, what do you want? And it's one thing to sit there and say, well, we want ownership over our games, but then suddenly people go, well, what does that look like? And so I gotta know, what do you think that looks like? What do you think ownership of your game means? So, because to me, I think that means that as long as the developer has signed off and said modding is okay, you can sit there and you can mod. You can sit there and you can enjoy your game the way you want. If you want to sit there and run it on a private server, you can run it on a private server. If you want to sit there and download it and have a backup copy of that download for ages, you should be totally allowed to have that. All of that should be allowed and within reason. Now, am I sitting there saying go out there and make, cheat engines legal? No, because bricking the game like that, I think, is wrong. But I would say game ownership to me looks, I own it. I can do what I want with it. I can uninstall it on any system I want, and I can enjoy that game for the rest of my natural born days on on this planet. That's what game ownership looks like to me.
Especially on a bare minimum for games, like I'm just gonna point a specific example just to narrow down all the what ifs, like Bethesda, the Fallout series 3 and 4, like those games profited off, player made content. You could buy other people's content on that game. I would assume that if I have my own custom content, I would not just want to be able to have access to that stuff I paid for, but if they're going to shut it down, I would like to have access to developers' tools as well to keep the game going,
At the
not
bare
destroy
minimum,
those things.
at the bare minimum, we should all expect at least what they gave us in the 90s and the early 2000s. If you kept the device the game was designed for, or you can keep a machine that has an appropriate OS for that game, you should be able to keep the digital download or the physical copy, and just no matter how many times you uninstall it and reinstall it, it still friggin' work. And that's understandable if the live servers are no longer available, because there's no reason to keep a server on that has 10 players left on Earth playing in it. But to completely just make the game inert, to totally pull
Destroy it.
everything that was still playable out of there. I could still pull out a Nintendo or a Sega or a very original Xbox and play any offline game that was ever created, any single player, or any split screen co-op. I could still play it exactly the way it was the last time I turned that console off, 10, 15 years ago. And that, I think, is the bare minimum we should expect from the games we actually purchase, is that we could pull them out of the closet, dust them off, and they're still what they were when we bought them.
Yeah. I completely agree. I mean, yeah. Like, well, I'm just imagining myself with just old school Game Boy, having my old
Yeah.
Game Boy games, carrying that around, have that for 20 years, I still do it,
I think
Yeah.
out of all of us, you have the most unique perspective because it is an industry that you would want to get into, that you've kind of had
Yeah.
your eye on. And it fascinates me because for somebody like you who's inspiring to be a developer, who wants to sit there and you want to get into making video games and making content for video games and whatnot. I mean, at the bare minimum, my understanding of it is if you create something for one of those companies, it's not yours, it's theirs. But at the same time, I feel like you would get some kind of credit for it. And this is almost like them taking something from you as a creator and being like, well, you don't get any credit for that. No, I mean, what'd you do? Oh, you added a couple of trees in the background. Well, you don't get credit for creating those trees. I'm sorry. Or, oh, you created that main character that everybody loves in the video game. But, really honestly, you just put the polygons together. Screw it.
I mean, don't you get your name in the credits?
I'm just saying, if they took your name out of the credits because they don't feel like you deserve to be in the credits.
That's shitty.
Yeah. It kind of feels like the same thing to me, where basically if the game is a live service and they can choose to shut it down whenever they want and not give anybody anything in return, what's to stop them from robbing you, the worker, the creator of something in that, and being like, well, no, I mean, honestly, you just added those like 4 polygons and whatever. You don't deserve any credit for that, even though those 4 polygons may have taken you like 16 months worth of work and screaming every day at your screen or whatever. You had to get those jiggle physics just right, or whatever. It feels disingenuous. And I feel like Ubisoft with the whole crew thing is a disingenuous handshake out to the crowd going, can you guys just ignore this now, please, and make it go away? And I don't want it to go away. I want real changes to come to this damn industry because we're all suffering from their decisions. And again, I'm going to have to spend $100 fucking on GTA 6. I don't want to spend that. Plus, I have to buy a PS5. I don't own one yet.
I just wait till it comes out on PC.
Same.
I have a feeling GTA 6 is going to be another GTA 5 where we're going to get a million renditions of it. So, and by the time I'm 80 is when GTA 7 will probably be in talks about coming out. I'll be an old man in my nursing home sitting there being like, what?
It's finally stable release. I got it, Steve.
They're going to drop 4 or 5 DLCs a year, so if you're like a year behind on picking up the game, there's going to be more fucking content to complete than you could ever possibly catch up to.
Finish with.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, well, I think we've reached another natural stopping point. So,
Oh boy.
I think this has been a great discussion. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. I hope our wonderful listeners at home have enjoyed it. If you like this podcast, go ahead, click that subscribe button down below. Go ahead and ring that like bell, and get your notifications on this and everything. For me personally, I'm Steve of WTFAnimeINC. I'm so glad that you could come along on this journey. With me, as always, is Ladyducky of Twitch. Please check her out at Twitch. Of course, we have EmberSoul of Twitch. Please check him out at Twitch. And we have KriticalSkeptic of Discord, who will soon be on Twitch as well. If you have any questions about where you can find us, all of our links are in the description below. Please feel free to check it out. And of course, this is not only available on YouTube, but is available on Spotify. And coming soon, we will also be available on iTunes. From myself and all my co-hosts, we wish you a very good one, and thanks for tuning in. Bye.